Family Skeptical, Parenting Through Nonbelief.
We're a married atheist couple raising two wonderful, strange children. We ask big questions, dissect weird parenting moments, and examine how society ignores or misrepresents families like ours. If you're any stripe of non-believer who's involved in raising children, welcome. You are our people.
Our kids have heard all our swears, but yours might not have. So be thoughtful if there are young people listening with you. I sort of feel like we're recording on day 3 of a panic attack for me.
Okay.
So
yeah,
this is going to be,
right.
This is going to be
Wait, the panic
great.
attack is still happening?
I think so.
Okay.
And I feel weird using that language.
Okay.
Because I have never been formally diagnosed with anxiety.
Uh-huh.
And I know actual panic attacks are, sometimes people feel like they're dying. And I certainly do not feel like that. But we could also just say day 3 of sort of constant frantic anxiousness. It's a thing. I don't know. But anyways, we're doing okay. It has been an interesting time.
It has been.
Yeah, we're in the middle of some pretty big decisions. A woman at Jaeger's school what is her technical sort of designation that she's in charge of?
Oh, just like the gifted program.
Yeah, so the woman at Jaeger's school who handles a gifted program reached out and let us know that Jaeger has some opportunities. And one of those was kind of advancing a grade in one subject. And another option was potentially skipping a whole grade. When we first heard about it, I think it's pretty safe to say that both you and I felt pretty strongly that the one subject option sounded like the best thing. I'm not somebody who's felt like advancement for advancement's sake is really the way to go. I think there's a lot of sort of social and emotional learning that happens at school, and I've always tried to think more in those terms. But kind of to my surprise, Jaeger has been very, very interested in the skipping a whole grade option. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. I feel like our opinion matters, but his opinion matters a lot too. And so we're trying to explore it pretty intensely. But yeah, we have to decide soon. And it's just it's a lot to think through.
It's so much so that it contributes to panic attacks.
I mean, it's not the only thing.
Oh, no, I said contributes.
Yeah, it helps. I think what's making it so hard for me is that I can see all the ways that Jaeger is very advanced and how it could be wonderful for him in a lot of ways. And I feel like I can also see all the ways that it could be really difficult. And I don't know how to weigh it all.
Mm.
And I don't know if he has the tools to weigh it all.
Oh, he doesn't.
Yeah.
We've talked about it a lot with him, but the best we can hope for is just sort of a passing acceptance that it's an impactful decision. And anything beyond that would be great. But yeah. I fully anticipate, should Jaeger qualify to actually do this, because it's still up in the air. It still has to be tested. They still have to do the evaluations, all that sort of stuff. So none of this is a done deal. It could very well just not happen.
Yeah.
But if it does happen, I mean, I'm at least 50-50, if not 60-40, that he would have some sort of meltdown due to academic pressures or adjusting to routine or social situations and complications. there's just a huge difference. 5th grade, it's a very pivotal grade. And to skip over 5th grade and go straight into middle school without having that very, let's say, useful, if not prerequisite, transitional time where your homework ramps up and you're treated more maturely and you have, a huge jump in expectations from 4th grade, that I just don't want him to sink. I want to make sure he can swim. But at the same time, like, he is really enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
And so part of me as a parent wants him to set the goal. And if that is a goal that really matters to him, then it has to matter to me because I love him.
Yeah.
Like, I have to take the goal seriously. And if the goal doesn't cause harm, then I have to figure out a way to help support him as best I can. I don't think it would cause harm. I don't think that the struggle and short-term pain would necessarily be, I would necessarily call that harm, right? Like, obviously there are long-term ramifications, which we've talked about with him and the counselor and each other, about being a year younger than everybody else through the teenage years, which when it comes to partying and driving and eventually voting and dating, there's a lot of stuff that he just isn't aware of yet. And he doesn't care about yet. But when he does care about it, it'll be too late to say, oh, wait, let's pump the brakes. It's already done.
On the other hand, I think, they're interesting things. We talked about sort of like the college implications of being younger as well. He said he would be very interested in taking a gap year. So like, that's kind of interesting because it would put him back into his age group for college if he actually sticks with that.
Sure. Yes. And that was his idea, unprompted.
Yeah.
We didn't say, hey, you could also do this to sort of massage the situation on the back end before you transition into the next phase of your life. He was just like, oh yeah, no, I could totally do a gap year. I'm like, this kid's thinking about it, which is one of the reasons why I really took him seriously. When he proposed that as sort of like a compromise, like he's willing to accept that age differential, knowing that by the time he gets to college, it's going to be even.
Yeah. And I mean, it is interesting because I think I've seen more friendships between grades here than I remember growing up. So that's the other thing. You
mean across age groups is what you're saying? Okay.
So that's interesting to note. And, and the middle school has a lot of opportunities that I think he would really thrive in. So, he's talked a lot about sort of being tired of the grade school thing of like having to walk in lines and being treated like you're younger. And I think he would do okay outside of that. I think he's also hoping the kids are more mature. And that's where I don't know if it'll feel that way to him in the way that he wants. Do you know what I mean? As far as I think like...
Yes, I think that he does have this expectation that because he's skipping a grade, the maturity level is going to like dramatically improve.
Yeah.
Which I think is nonsensical.
So I'm looking forward. We had another call with the woman at his school, and now next week we're going to have a call with the middle school, the folks at the middle school. And I really adored the middle school principal. So I think he'll have some good insight. Amazingly, the gifted woman at him school is like, nobody has any problems. This always goes great, which I'm sort of like blown away by as a stance. So it's been a lot to ponder.
Yeah.
And I do really want to follow his lead. Though I don't know. I don't know. It's been a time.
It has been. And sometimes you have panic attacks.
And sometimes I have lingering panic attacks. Or whatever they are. Whatever it is that my brain does. Are you expecting to feel more like you'll sort of know how you'll feel after this middle school conversation, or do you expect you'll still be?
I'm expecting nothing.
Okay. I think we, by the time we record again, we'll sort of have to have some sort of pending decision in place.
I think so, yeah.
Well, I mean, based on the timeline she laid out.
I mean, kind of have to.
Yeah. I mean, I think like there's testing that could potentially undo that decision, but we'll at least have to have our preference noted, is my understanding. So, as we teased in one of our past episodes, we got a great question from a listener.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to read her whole email.
Ooh.
But she found us through Joe Piazza's Under the Influence, which I continue to love. And she wrote in because her son wound up having a school performance. And it turned out to be a very patriotic thing with skits, and they saying, "God bless the USA, this land, grand old flag." And she mentioned, really loving this country. She's a veteran, which is amazing. And, also feeling like right now it's a very strange time to do a super patriotic performance with everything happening under Trump. And she asked a great question, which was, "I'm curious what your thoughts are and how you teach your boys to be proud of their country without it being cringeworthy or feel like you're aligning with Christian nationalism." So I don't feel like we've fully talked about this. And I think it's a fantastic question.
Sure.
Because
I have an answer that's probably maybe too pat, but I've thought about it a lot.
Okay.
So, no, I haven't even thought about it a lot in the wake of one of our wonderful listeners asking us about discussing patriotism with our kids. I've thought about it a lot, just in general, as I deconstructed, as I found secular humanism in particular, but even more so now that I have been getting more and more into philosophy.
Do you want to give your pat answer and go from there?
Sure, that's fine. So the way I look at it is that nationalism is about the state or the sort of emblematic expressions of it, whereas patriotism is about the people. And the way that I feel very patriotic is that I support and ally myself with the people who likewise want to reduce harm as much as possible, just in general, and allow for people to have maximal well-being and flourishing. Because, as I've said before, I like the idea of at least exploring the possibility of being a moral realist as an atheist, where you can have objective moral facts and that you can ground them in, something other than a lawgiver, which again makes no sense to me because that's just another mind making decisions about its preferences that you then subjectively assent to, why ought I listen to God sort of thing. But I digress. No, when it comes to patriotism, it's about the people. And because I would love to teach my kids to value people, even people who disagree with you, because when somebody disagrees with you, you don't necessarily fully appreciate the reason why. And so it's really easy to get caught up in this political movement or that political movement is doing this bad thing or that bad thing. So anybody who allies themselves with this political movement or that political movement fully supports all of these bad things, or they fully support everything that the leaders of that political movement support or do. And I just think people are complex. And I think that just like I left religion, and I know people who stopped supporting Trump after voting for the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Like, it is a non-zero number. The reason why we see like state and local seats, and from school boards to mayorships, go Waukesha, to, state legislature, seeing them flip in special elections and whatever, is because there's a groundswell, I think. And it's not just, let's say it is against our best interest to be dismissive of these people changing their minds, because those situations, those flips don't happen unless the person who won before in landslides loses support in a big way. And so, it's about the people. The people in like at a certain point were drawn in by populism, like even as toxic as Trump's version is, because they were fearful and desperate. And now they realize that his version of populism is so toxic that they made a mistake and they are now reversing course. Again, not all of them, but a non-zero number. Just like with me and leaving theism and so many other people who are ardent theists and then deconstruct, just like we needed the space and time to change, and we needed the grace of other people who had already done that work on themselves first before us, to allow us to change and make those mistakes and say the things that they had already said to their friends and family in their past deconstructions. Like, we can't be judgy. We have to say we are a group of people that are not this billionaire class, because I truly believe it's a class conflict more than it is a political conflict, because what's driving the political conflict is media ownership and disinformation to a pretty solid degree, and gerrymandering, and all these things are solved by getting money out of politics, right? Like the money out of politics and true democratization of a vote, like, makes so many of these issues just not even be on the table anymore. Because if you ask people about what they value and the sorts of political and social programs that they support, you're going to get MAGA folks saying, yeah, I would love to have after school care for my kids, because I might be white and poor, but I'm still poor and I can't afford X, Y, and Z. And I need to work 2 jobs. And sometimes my mother-in-law can't take them, and I have to bring my kids to work. Like, they have the same problems, but the issue is that there has been this divide, this artificial divide, in my opinion, that's been wedged by design to make teams, and then pumping up rhetoric to make teams feel like teams. And so part of patriotism is accepting that what unites us as a people group, as a nation, is greater than what divides us. And that the flip of that is, it flies in the face of us being social creatures. That, like, we will default perhaps to tribalism, but I don't think we default to tribalism to such a degree that we will be inherently that horrible to each other. So I totally get where the listener is coming from, but I fully reject what is being pushed on us as being this necessary means of discourse, because up until recently, it wasn't this way. And we have to remember that it wasn't this way. And it will not be this way forever. It can't be, because society would fall apart. And so we as a people are far more numerous than that handful of billionaires that pretend to also be patriotic when they're just looking out for themselves. I feel more kinship to even the most ardent MAGA supporter, because I feel bad for them. Like, given a chance, they wouldn't be in a cult, right? Like,
I mean,
I think
people...
that that they have a predilection perhaps like if somebody is, has like a predisposition to having an authoritarian mindset, then they will be attracted to that sort of thing. But if that sort of thing isn't a possibility or an option, they'll have very few places to turn to, and they will re-enter a more civil version of this, which is how it was for decades. It wasn't like the right in America has always been this way. This is a very recent occurrence.
Yeah. I mean, I think going back to the listener's email, I mean, I think I could really do without God Bless America. Like,
Sure.
That's a whole separate question. And I think is a discussion that,
I don't like that. That's a nationalist. The whole like the God Bless America, the Pledge of Allegiance, all that sort of stuff. Like if it's not opt out, like make it opt out and force them to make you be in trouble, and then make as big a freaking stink as you can about it. That is our obligation. It's our
if you were in a place to do so without that having serious impacts.
Well,
look,
agree to disagree.
Well, I think there are a lot of things you have to consider with that, about how comfortable your kid feels, about where their friends are coming from, about the social impacts. If you work in the school system, if that would potentially put your job at risk. I mean, there's just a lot of different things that can come up. But I think if you're in a position to do so,
everybody needs to be Sally Field. We need to throw our wooden shoes into the gears of the machine. We need to stand up. We need to like go join hand in hand, and we need to stare down the man.
So I think if that is something you feel comfortable pushing back on, I think that is a great place to do it. When I think of patriotism, I mean, there's a lot to be said about politics in this country, and I think how people got to the MAGA movement is varied and complex, and there are some people in it who can truly go and fuck themselves, and then other people who I think when everyone around you is espousing those kind of ideas, I know people who in other ways in their life are truly wonderful people who are very much in line with that. So, but when I think when I talk to the kids about patriotism, like I'm not thinking about politics at all. And I think it comes back to what you were saying about patriotism being about the people. And so when I talk to the kids, we're in an interesting position because we were living in another country and chose to come back to this one.
Yeah. And we've been asked a non-zero number of times, why did you move back to America?
Yeah. For the most part, that wasn't like because I love America so much. It was very personal concerns that were specific to our family. But I do love America. And when we were moving away, there's a writer I follow. Her name is Janelle Hanchett. And she used to have a site called Renegade Mothering. She now has a Substack, which I'll link to. It's not in front of me this minute. I love a lot of her work. I actually took a writing class with her. I have mixed feelings about some of it, but in general, she's a really interesting thinker. And around the time we were moving away, she also moved away. She moved her family, I want to say the Netherlands.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it was very interesting to read her story, like while we were going through the same thing.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And she has stayed in the Netherlands and also like spent a long time desperately missing California, where she came from. And I think her writing to me is some of the most sort of honest and complex. Because obviously, like the social services in the Netherlands and like what they provided her family was so amazing. And there's like no way to compare what healthcare, it's just like, we know, like in a lot of these countries with socialized medicine, like it is so much better, right? But she also wrote very honestly, like there's no place that's perfect, right? And the Netherlands is a lot more, there's a lot less diversity in the Netherlands than in the US. We have a huge country, and it's not even like racially or anything like that, but like people who grow up in the South, that's like so different than people who grow up in the West, on the West Coast or on the East Coast or in the Midwest.
Yeah.
We have a huge country.
Mm-hmm.
I know in one of her essays, she talked about like it is much easier to look at your fellow citizen and be like, oh my God, they deserve as much as me. We should make a system that makes us all equal, when the other people you're looking at are so much more like you. Like, we are tribal as a certain sense as human beings. And I think like the best we can be, like as we grow, I feel like part of that work is to like break down those sort of things that make us feel.
People just need to travel more just in general. But like it comes down like that again, when people have the money lying around to do stuff, they'll go do stuff. But when the middle class has been gutted and wages haven't grown with inflation for like 50 years, like people just don't have the disposable income to say, oh, we've always wanted to go, I don't know, to Paris.
Yeah.
Let's go to Paris. They can't do it. They'll never do it. It'll always be a dream. They'll never know anything other than their hometown because they were never able to get out. And so all they can do is drive around and do stuff locally. And that's just the world in which they live, which isn't necessarily bad. It's just that it limits the way you view yourself. And I have like a quote that I'm going to drop right now. Okay. That's totally germane. This is not autisto rambling. Okay.
Okay.
Promise. Okay. I know you were worried for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Yuri Gagarin, first man in space, hero of the Soviets, right? This is his quote after returning. Looking at the Earth from afar, you realize it is too small for conflict and just big enough for cooperation. We're a Star Trek family. We come back to it a lot. We refer to it a lot. I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing it. But there's that part of Star Trek that is like, okay, all of this is possible because specifically humanity was able to view itself as a species.
Yeah.
And not as these tiny people groups vying for limited resources. I just wanted to share that because it feels like, just like in the wake of the Artemis 2, where again, astronauts up there saying, man, look at that. In this case, they said what? Amaze, amaze, amaze.
Yeah.
Right?
But that gets me to the other. So I do think, but I just wanted to say, like, I don't think America is necessarily uniquely terrible. I think it has some extra challenges for like getting on the same page in that way. On the other, like, amaze, 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 that's from a movie, right?
Yeah.
And like, that's the other thing I think about America. Like, there are, when I think about my patriotism, like, I love traveling, but my mom also says, like, there is so much to be found in your own backyard. And we did a ton of travel in my home state of Wisconsin. And one thing that Wisconsin has that's a little unique is we have a lot of outsider artists. And that's like a hard term, and how people get put into that category is a little bit complex. But like, the people I like the best are just these like, people with not a lot of like necessarily formal art education, not people who grew up going to art museums and necessarily being exposed to a lot of art by their families, but who just decided to go out and make art because they so desperately wanted to. And there were sites all across the country. I think I'm right that Wisconsin has a higher percentage than a lot. But there are these amazing sites where there was a guy who owned a bar, and he made these incredible sculptures in his backyard with all the broken glass from the bar. Oh. All the broken bottles, just like out of cement and then with glass stuck in them. And, when I talk to the kids about patriotism, I'm like, there are some really like stupid, terrible things about this country. But we've also created like such amazing,
It's a land of dreamers.
It is. And like, it's so sad that we're pushing back against immigrants because we are a country.
They're us.
They are us. And the reason we're like foolish and kind of heady is like we are the place that when people were like, what if we just moved and changed everything? They came here a lot of times. And I think that leads to some of the bad things because we're all like, we should treat the billionaires well because maybe I'll be a billionaire one day. Like that's wild thinking, but I think people,
borderline delusional.
It is. We are borderline delusional, and that leads to like a lot of the problems we have. But it also leads to this like amazing shit that we have. I mean, it's changing, but like we made the culture of the world for years and years and years because people were just willing to do like wild, amazing stuff, like. The art scene in New York, Andy Warhol.
And when people have more disposable income, they can encourage their children to take bigger swings, to take more risks. The billionaire class is choking literally that spark.
Yeah.
Because they're reducing or eliminating people's abilities. Let's say their risk aversion increases dramatically because they don't have the resources to deal with a loss on taking a risk like that.
Yeah.
And how many great things did we not get as a result that we would never know about? We will never know about the things that we didn't get. They were never realized because they weren't given the opportunity to grow and flourish. And that's the real shame.
And
they would come from everywhere, including immigrants.
And the other thing I mention, and I don't know how accurate this is, but I've heard some other people say it. I know it's accurate for the US, but I'm not sure if I'm totally correct about other countries. But I have heard, again, coming back to immigrants, that in other countries, it's more common for immigrant populations to sort of remain separate for more generations, where they feel more separate from the country they've gone to.
Yes.
And it's so sad with like the dreamers and these kids who grew up here.
Who assimilated. They did the thing that they were supposed to do.
And that's the other wild thing about America.
So fucked up.
Like people come from all over and some fucking way, like the first generation of kids that grows up here is American.
Completely. Like, dyed in the wool.
Yes.
Slang.
They might be speaking
everything.
Their parents' language.
Accent. Yep.
Yeah, they might be speaking their parents' language at home. They might be cooking their food. But like on some level, they're just fucking American. And that's wild. Like that's wild. There is something kind of amazing about here. And so, I don't know, like when our kids talk about the bad things, there are lots of bad things to talk about.
And we'd never, ever, ever shy away from it, including the stuff that we personally have been contributing towards. Like, we are not perfect as parents. We are not on a soapbox about how other people are the problem. Like, we all contributed. That's part of being a patriot, is that like with history or, looking at, critical race theory, like avoiding historical facts is not a good thing. It's not a good look. It doesn't yield good results. You are not learning from your mistakes. We try to do that as parents. We try to help install that in our kids and help them appreciate the value of it. And then part of that is saying, okay, so Trump's in office. We didn't vote for him. How did we, though, nonetheless, contribute to his rise? What did we do or not do that yielded this situation? Because these solutions, they are like all of these big issues, they're all hands on deck.
Yeah.
None of these issues get solved by us pointing the finger at the people that we think are the real bad guys. Like, we have to assume that we did something wrong. Otherwise, we will not improve. Like, that's where those big growth moments happen, right? Is when you take responsibility for a mistake, even if you didn't have like full, true full responsibility for it, because you will then grow nonetheless. You are always growing and improving. Somewhere along the way, we were convinced to point fingers instead of reflect. And that goes hand in hand with that delusion. Like, it's deluded to think that you shouldn't reflect and that you should instead point fingers. So part of patriotism is reflection, saying we did a bad thing. We need to apologize and improve.
I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot, actually, because Joe Piazza just had an episode about how Gen Z is the most conservative generation in a long time.
No, it's split in half. The first, one half of Gen Z is and voted for Trump. The other half of Gen Z is completely like anarcho, like leftist.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
But
divide.
I was just like playing on my phone.
Yeah, that is Gen Z. Yeah, I think so.
I think so. I was like just playing on my phone because I was like trying to figure out who their parents were. Because I'm like,
it's us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Gen
is.
Z, yeah.
But like, I'm really curious for like.
We just got started late.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
But like for men and women, I'm just like very curious because I think, like, I'm thinking about what feminists looked like when what feminism looked like when I grew up.
Uh-huh.
I feel like it was so much more limited than what people are thinking about now.
Ooh, how so?
Well, it wasn't thinking about changing systems. It was thinking about how to try to fit women into existing male systems.
Oh, gotcha. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that was really hard. So I think, I have no idea. I'm not a sociologist, but I just was like really interested in it. And I was like trying to figure out who the parents of each generation were. Because I was like, if you grew up watching your mom like try to make that work, I can imagine being like, well, that was fucked and didn't really work. And like, no, it didn't.
Those are, remember, that was just are the kids whose mothers were mothers in the 50s.
Yeah.
Because we're talking like late 60s into the mid 70s. So that, like if you think about all the tropes about, spousal abuse and alcohol addiction and just like rampant misogyny, like what else would come from that other than like, I've had all I can stand and I can't stand no more, that sort of thing.
So I don't know, but I was just thinking about it a lot because I'm like, we keep growing and learning, right? And like, if you saw a version that was more or less like not really questioning the systems, but just trying to be like, well, how can we get women paid the same amount and like power within them?
Yep.
Like, I can imagine growing up being like, well, that didn't work particularly well. And it's like, no, it fucking didn't.
And I think that's why a lot of the younger Gen Z going into Gen Alpha are getting more anarchic.
I'm wondering.
Losing faith in government, saying that, no, we need to be out and out socialist or communist. Like, we need to have social protections and collectivism, and we need to restore power to people and take it away from the outsized control of exceptionally, unbelievably greedy people.
Yeah.
Who would happily see groups of the population literally starve to death or get sick and die in order for those individuals to make money. We all know how gross it is, but I guess it shouldn't it's a good point, moms, in that same way that, feminism was a response. I think that we're seeing, a socialistic response to, this out of control capitalism.
And I've also been listening to a lot of Black thinkers being like, it's the racism, it's not the capitalism. So maybe I'm being like very, I'm being too much of a white woman. But like, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
racism has shaped the country too. But anyway, I think,
of course.
But I do think it's interesting. And I wonder what the generations coming up with parents who are more like, maybe it's the system. what that's gonna look like. But yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. I think when we talk about like, if you love your country and if you want to talk about patriotism, I think it can be incredibly personal.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
From those like wacky Wisconsin people throwing cement around their backyard to like, jazz or like whatever.
The beat poets, man.
That's not mine, but I'm sure it's somebody's.
But I think one of the most patriotic things you can do is to just talk to your kids about like all the ways that your country has fucked up and is still fucked up.
Oh yeah.
And like just doing that, just having that conversation is probably and then at the end of it, say like talking to them about, who in the country would benefit from solving these problems. Like that is an exceptionally patriotic conversation. It has nothing to do with emblems. It has nothing to do with singing songs. It has nothing to do with venerating leaders. It's just about the people. How can the mechanism of the government and the country's economy be of the greatest possible service to the greatest number of people, minimizing the greatest amount of harm on a daily basis? And, and it seems really like maybe simplistic to look at it that way, but I don't know. It seems like a really good way of looking at it because it ultimately boils down to harm reduction and humanism. And I think if we're also to be good parents and we want to look at different ways that we can express our values to our kids in a consistent way and help them understand that, like, okay, you might disagree with like what I'm saying or how I'm saying it, but I think it's important that you understand my thought process. So at the very least, you might be as reflective in your own life when you come up with your own personal philosophy and your own worldview. So that way, what you're doing is also grounding it in that reflection so you can maybe like hold yourself to the greatest possible account and responsibility, which I think makes you of better service to other people. And that is part of patriotism.
Yeah. Speaking of like simplicity in songs, when I was a
good
kid,
question. Jeez Louise.
My mom and I would bike to the fireworks each year.
Oh yeah,
because you could avoid all the traffic.
I wish we could. I wish we could have done that. The traffic is miserable.
Yeah,
I think my parents started like taking this shuttle bus in because then you wouldn't have to park and walk.
Yep,
that was the worst part of it. Jeez.
And we would bike back, and we would always sing "If I Had a Hammer."
Oh,
and
nice.
I can't sing that song without crying.
Oh no,
I can't. There's just
You'd
like
hammer
speaking
in the
of
morning.
Yeah. In the evening.
Hammer in the evening and at supper time.
All over this land.
Yes. With my brothers and my sisters.
So I don't know. To me, that's one of the most like, just,
like Woody
heartbreaking patriotic songs.
Like Woody Guthrie, right? Like this land is your land. This land is my land. From the fact that we coexist. And that's the Yuri Gagarin thing. And like how many other astronauts have said similar stuff. It's like we have a tiny spinning rock traveling in a solar system that's hurtling through the universe at 500,000 kilometers an hour or whatever, some incredible rate of speed, right? Hurtling, careening around our galactic center. In the wake of the Artemis mission, it just feels like a great time to look up instead of across a table or down at trash that's not getting picked up or at a pothole that's not getting filled. Like, I think we need to dream bigger and look at how the people around us can support those dreams. And then more importantly, how we can uplift our friends' dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, now I'm getting emotional. It's hard being a parent right now.
Yeah.
Because you want to tell your kids that they can do anything. And then you remember that predatory capitalism exists and is getting stronger with each passing day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guillotines. It's time.
So it just so happens, if you haven't listened to it, you should definitely go back and listen to our conversation last week with Alastair Lichten, a humanist dad. I loved that conversation so much.
Got some overflow.
It went so long, I had to cut a section out, and it just happened to perfectly coincide with this question. So I'm going to post it here. Go support his work. I'll put links to his blog, all of that. It's amazing. But this felt like kind of the appropriate finish up to the conversation we just had. I am curious, do you ever worry? Because we talk like along that line of having strong opinions. We talk with our kids about everything, and they are like very vocal about how they feel about Trump and different policies. Do you ever worry about your kids expressing that in an environment where they might be around people who don't share the same beliefs?
Not massively. We talk a lot about principles and justice stuff, and we're not really at any news. We're not really engaging our kids with the news at the moment much.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids they have such a strong sense of justice, which we love. And though I've spoken about because I'm talking about like neurodivergence and justice sensitivity, and like strong sense of justice does not necessarily equal accurate sense of justice. So
Yeah.
that's something we need to develop as we get older. I also, they're only kind of just now beginning to starting to realize that our values are not the values that everyone has, and I think all kids go through that. And if you're particularly if you're raised in a religious values, that you might come to that realization later in life. If you're raised in quite strong political values of various things, kids will experience that as they get older, and we want to give them the tools for understanding that and having those conversations.
Yeah, because I definitely... So it's the one thing, just, because they don't have as much social awareness to be like, to read the room, I mean, our neighborhood is very liberal, so they can have, and I think they do have those conversations with their friends, which is why they're willing to talk about it, and they're not as good at knowing when the room might be different.
Yeah, and I remember having that around. So we have religious education at school, and when I was younger, I used to get in trouble a lot for laughing in religious education. And it wasn't. It was. I don't think I was even that like. I used to laugh at things that I found silly, and it wasn't. It wasn't me being. It wasn't me being a dick. It wasn't me being like a little. I wasn't being a little young edgelord or anything. I just genuinely often and needed to learn lessons around some things that you think are funny and absurd, and doesn't necessarily be religion, but all sorts of things are meaningful to other people. And sometimes also kids need to know that adults will be unkind to them because of things that they say or believe or do, and that as adults will perceive things they do as naughty or as wrong in a way that we in our family don't. And how it's difficult. We were starting to have conversations about how we act at home versus how we act out and about. It's just even that, with very, very young kids, when you talk about inside voice and outside voice, that's something they need. That's something they need to learn. And it's something that with something inside and outside voice is still something that's still learning and will be for some years yet.
That's a great term to use. I mean, I get nervous when it's just like strangers because, who knows in this country right now. Interestingly, with Jaeger, I just had the first real conversation where something came up at school. It wasn't with a teacher, but somebody else, where he felt like that person in authority was doing something that wasn't correct.
Oh, yes.
And, kids, it's hard to know exactly what happened. But I was like, if you wanted to say something and get in trouble, do you know who would have your back? And he was like, you guys? And I was like, yeah. And actually, if you had gotten in trouble and been sent to the principal and had explained what was going on, I actually don't think you would have been in trouble. But in situations where it's more controlled and safe, I do want them to think about that, there is good trouble. And if that's the kind of trouble you want to get in, we will always be your support there. Even, in those more safe situations that are more controlled, even if you get it wrong sometimes. I mean, they're kids and they'll misread the situation. But if they thought they were doing the right thing, we'll be there for them. All right. So that's it. We need to thank Jonathan Zalbin and First Frame Music for the music for this podcast.
And that wraps up this episode of The Family Skeptical, where nothing is sacred
except for our kids. Sorry, what is that noise in the background?
What noise?
It sounds like crunching.
You mean Kalia eating?
Oh my God. Okay.
Grinding her teeth?
Oh my God. All right. Yeah. That's amazing. Okay.
I'm just going to while she's doing that, I'm going to let you do most of the talking.
No. You keep talking. Keep talking.